because I've heard a lot of people comment on him rage quitting, and that wasn't. If you knew John, you just would know that that wasn't him.
Like killing himself?
Yeah.
Okay.
This just wasn't what he would do, right? He was a fighter till the end, and I believe that he definitely fought. However it was that they were able to get him in that position that he was in, I believe that he fought, which is why maybe they wouldn't allow me to see his body as I was requesting.
So the day that he died, it was decided that he would be extradited.
Right. But there was going to be appeals, right? There's an appeals process. So he wasn't going to be extradited that same day.
It was going to be what,
week,
months?
year, or month. It was going to be a long time. And so everyone understood that. So I spoke to him early in the morning before he went to court. After he came from court, he was disappointed, but again, it wasn't to be expected, or we expected the outcome anyways. And so the last thing he said to me on that conversation, our last conversation, was that I love you and I'll call you later. And so fast forward a few hours, I think it was about 4 or 5 p.m. Spain time, when someone sent me a DM, and I got a notification of the DM, and it said, OMG, tell me this isn't true, in all capital letters. And so I don't know why, I just immediately thought of John, and I went to Google, and that's how I found out that John was dead. And things after that are a little blurry, but I was able to go to the prison within that same week to collect his belongings. I spoke with the head of the guards. I guess he was like the boss, or the anyways, the boss of all the guards, over all the guards, and he just spoke very highly of John, and he was an exemplary a prisoner. He didn't cause any trouble, and he was always smiling and always engaging with everyone. And so they were very surprised, very shocked at what happened to him. It was just unbelievable to them, because especially that gentleman, he said he had spoken to John after he had come from court. So there was no evidence or that he was thinking about harming himself, and so for things to have ended that way, they were very shocking to the people in the prison. And after that, I think by the end of the week, I was able to go to their morgue and identify John. So I was in a room, and there was a glass window, and John, they rolled his body in on the other side, but all I was able to see was, from his head up. They had everything else covered because they said they were in the middle of the autopsy. And so I wasn't able to see the tattoos or anything, the markers that would have told me for sure that was him, or even just to see if there was bruises on his body, How
specifically did he die? Like, what was his method?
Shoestrings. In the pictures from the cell, there were shoestrings, a lot of shoestrings around his neck. It was, kind of this thick around his neck. So there was a lot of shoestrings, but you could see from the picture that it was shoestrings. And so...
wasn't there something fishy with like the way they dealt with him when they found him?
So let me get to that. I'm sorry. I will get into that. So the prison opened an investigation into John's death immediately after, which was strange because they were the ones that released that he had killed himself by suicide, right? That they, and so in their report, John actually wasn't dead when they found him. He was alive. His breathing was shallow and his pulse was faint, but he was still, breathing. He was still alive. Yeah. And so in the security footage, they send in a medical response team, and they come and they bring John's body out and lay him in the hall, and they put the thing over his mouth, and they're pumping air, and they're doing chest compressions for, over 10 minutes. They're doing this before they call it, and then they put his body back into the cell, and they take the picture. So anyways, from the report, it's reported that John he had the shoestrings around his neck, but he was there was something that was connecting him to the window. So that's how he was found. He was found hanging from the window in his cell, which is not a high window, right? And
so like it wouldn't have been tall enough.
No, not at all. And the guard actually made it a point to let me know that his feet were on the floor when they found him, which was interesting to me because it made me think of not that John is similar to Jeffrey Epstein, but it made me think of that because that I believe that's what was reported about him as well.
Yeah.
You know, that how would he have, you know, he was a very tall man, and so how would he have,
right.
And so so his feet were on the floor, and whatever it was he was attached to the window with, they burned it off to bring him down. So that evidence was destroyed. And also in the pictures in the investigation report, you still see the shoestrings tied around his neck. Now, I don't think that they cut it off and then laid it back on his, you know, for just the picture purposes. So that means that they were then, you know, doing these chest compressions and giving him oxygen with this, you know, shoestring noose around his neck, you know.
Was it still super tight or was it loose?
It had to have been. Because what?
If they took it off the window, though, maybe it...
Well, like I said, there was something attached to what was around his neck and around the, you know, at the window. So I don't know if that was something separate from what he, you know, or if that would have loosened what was around his neck in any way. But still, why would you not remove what's around his neck before trying to save his life, right? Because it seems that would defeat the purpose, you know, of whatever you're trying to do. Because I'm not sure why they would have went in with oxygen and chest compressions anyways when he had a heartbeat and he was breathing. So I'm not sure what should have been done in that instance, but I don't know that would have been the right protocol.
So he had a pulse.
Yes.
His heart was beating and he was breathing.
A faint pulse, but
he was unconscious.
Shallow breathing, yes. So I'm not sure
what was the cause of death
then? They say asphyxiation. That's what they were saying.
So maybe there was so much damage to his windpipe or something like this that he couldn't...
Possibly, I don't know. That's the problem, is that they never released the full autopsy report. We got basically like a summary. So it's like 4 pages.
And you were the only point of contact. You were the only emergency contact for him.
His attorney was as well.
His attorney was.
Yeah.
Him and you and the attorney.
Him and his he had 2 Spanish attorneys, so both Spanish attorneys, and neither of them were contacted when John died. No, so none of us were contacted. We all learned of his death through the news.
Wow. Do you think it's possible that if he was murdered, who do you think would have been behind it?
I don't know. You know, I don't know who would have given the orders, but obviously the people, someone in the prison, obviously.
Right. Well, somebody in the prison could have been paid to do it, but somebody obviously powerful who...
Obviously. I mean, and your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole host of people that we could begin to name, you know, that John, you know, would have named. You know, he had issues with a lot of people. He made it a point to make issues with a lot of powerful people, you know. And so, again, it could be anyone.
We haven't covered this yet, but you were a working girl.
Yes, I was a prostitute. Yes. Yeah, I was. I had been for almost 10 years at that point.
Okay. How old were you?
Oh, I had just turned 30. My birthday is December 9th, so I just turned 30.
You had just turned 30, wow.
Yeah.
So you started when you were 20?
21.
Wow.
Almost 21.
Okay.
Yeah. And so working the streets, right? I started off in the Bay Area, in Oakland, a little bit in San Francisco. Then we went to LA, San Diego, Vegas, a little bit in Denver, you know, and then the internet became, you know, Craigslist became a thing, or was a thing, and then Backpage, and then Arrow's Guide, and so that's what I was doing, you know, internet and the streets. If the internet was slow, I worked also in Phoenix. I hate Phoenix; it's so hot there. It's the worst place to work on the streets. DC, Virginia, Maryland, the DMV, as they call it, Miami.
Wow. What was the best place to prostitute? I would imagine Miami.
Miami was good.
Yeah.
Miami was good. The DMV was good for me because I'm Black, and so it was just a different vibe there.
Yeah.
It was just easier place to make money because there's places where, white girls, are gonna fare better, and so
I always one of the crazy things I never understood, which I think is so silly, is that prostitution's illegal.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the dumbest things. It might even be dumber than drugs.
Yeah.
Because, there's at least there's a case to be made that people can do drugs and get behind the wheel of a car and kill somebody or but prostitution, there's no victim. It's the oldest profession.
There's not supposed to be a victim, but
right. If it's done right.
Yeah.
It's the oldest profession.
Yeah.
And it's illegal unless you turn a camera on, then it's porn and it's legal.
Right. Right.
It's so stupid.
Right. Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. And maybe there would be less exploitation of the people that are, forced one way or another to find themselves in that occupation. Yeah. So yeah, I think Miami probably best place, DMV as well. So yeah, I was working there. We had been in Miami for a year and a half maybe before I met John. And so I go out, reluctantly I go out. Now it's after midnight, so it's December 14th, 2012. And I go to a place called Mango's. That was kind of the night spot. Clevelander was kind of shutting down. So this is on Ocean Drive. I'm sorry, Ocean Drive for anyone not familiar with Miami. And I was sitting outside of Mango's and decided that me and my girlfriend, or the other girl that was working for my pimp, that we were going to go to Fort Lauderdale to the casino, to the Hard Rock. And so we leave, and I actually happened to park our car across from the Beacon Hotel, which I don't normally park over there, but that's where we were parked. So that's where we were walking to. And I actually saw John standing outside of Johnny Rockets talking to a worker there. And when I passed him, he, we made eye contact, and I smiled at him and nodded, and I kind of sized him up really quickly, he doesn't have any money and he doesn't look interested.
He looks like a bum.
Yes, I did, right? Because
that's so funny.
I was how wrong I was, but yeah, that's what.
So funny.
That's how I sized him up, and so, we proceed to get to the Beacon Hotel, and that's when the night manager comes out, and we've chit-chatted before, just asking him, what's going on tonight, who's in town, are the police out harassing girls, just trying to get a feel for what's happening, that night. And while we're talking, he happens to look down and he says, well, that guy is down there, yeah? And I was like, no, I don't know who that is. He said, well, that's John McAfee. And I'm like, okay, well, who's that? And he said, well, that's do you know the McAfee antivirus? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, that's the guy who created that. And so, immediately I was like, ooh, and, but I still was not sure that I wanted to. But anyways, I was just like, okay, well, let's just see what happens, right? So I go down, I'm walking back towards where he was, and he's now made it to the news cafe. And he was smoking a cigarette. And so while he was smoking his cigarette, I asked him for one just to kind of open up the conversation. And while he was lighting my cigarette, he asked me, what are you girls out here doing, drugging and rolling old men? And I said, we don't use drugs. And so he was very intrigued by that response, and invited us to have, to sit and have coffee with him. And so, I went through the whole spiel of, would you like, some chocolate tonight, some vanilla, 2 for $1, or, a little swirl. Whatever. Yeah. All the things just to get it out of the way. Right. Because I'm with this girl, and so I have to, give the appearance of trying to do business, else I could get in trouble with the pimp, if I'm not teaching her the right thing. So anyways, we went through that, and he was like, I'm really not interested. I said, okay, well, what's your story? Who are you? What brings you to Miami, business or pleasure? And he was like taken aback by that. He's like, well, I've been in the news, for like the past couple of weeks here, especially here. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I don't watch the news. So who are you? He's almost insulted a little bit that I didn't know who he was. Mm-hmm. And so he just began to tell me, his story of how he came to be in Miami and all of the things that I just relayed to you about his time in Belize. And so, not in such great detail that I've told you, but yes, and overall. And so he then also began to tell me about the girls, the girls that he met. I'm not sure how the conversation shifted to them, but he was telling me about the girls, and that's when I learned about Amy and Samantha, just the more intimate things of him building houses for them and all the things he did for them. And so, a couple of hours has passed by, while we're having this conversation. But while we're sitting there, the way that the news cafe used to be set up was there was like a ground level, if you will, and then there was a lifted area where you came up the stairs.
The news cafe?
Yeah, the news cafe right there. They've remodeled it since. Okay. But so there was like a wall there for that lifted part. And so he was sitting with his back to that wall. But while we're sitting there for these hours, he's watching very closely people that are walking by, people that are driving by. And so I picked up on that immediately because that's something that I would have to do, being a working girl, right? You got to keep your head on the swivel and be just aware of your surroundings. Mm-hmm. And so, so there was, I would say that he was concerned. He was just trying to be aware of his surroundings. So I just made a mental note of that. I was very aware of that while he's telling me this story, Right. And so he asked me if I could get rid of my girlfriend because she wasn't really adding much to the conversation. She was high on Molly, so she was, yeah. And so yeah, I told her that she could go ahead and leave. And so she did, and we hung out a little longer. And then he invited me back to his hotel, and we went to his room where he, so he goes in, and we're in his room, and he goes in the bathroom, and, I'm looking around because I'm just nosy that way, whatever. And he comes out of the bathroom, and he's like kind of nervously, like rocking up and down on his tippy toes on the side of the bed. And he's like, would you mind if we just cuddled? And I was like, yeah, sure, we can do that. But in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, like what kinky sex thing is this? Because I've never heard of cuddling. So like, oh my God, trying to go through my Rolodex. But I was like, okay, whatever it is, I could figure it out. Right? Yeah, I could figure it out. So, but he just wanted to cuddle. And so we got in bed, and he like wrapped himself tightly around me and laid his head on my shoulder, and he was asleep in like 5 minutes, snoring. And it was the best sleep ever. Yeah. And obviously other things happened, obviously. But but not that night.
Not that night.
No, not
yeah, that seems odd though, doesn't it? Like, what do you think that was about?
He was tired. And he just needed a good night's rest. Right. Like he just went through all of this life-threatening,
that he wanted
situation.
Somebody to cuddle with, to sleep next to.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Well, because he said, while he was in Guatemala, he could have women, and,
right.
And, he had good coffee. He had all of those things, but he didn't know.
So, like, a
cuddle.
woman was like the equivalent of a blanket for a normal person for him.
Right.
Like, I can't go to sleep without my blanket and my pillow. He can't go to sleep without a woman.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Wild.
It was pretty cool, though.
That's
and
wild.
So in the morning he paid me the 5,000. I mean 1,000. I'm sorry,
1,000 and fives.
He paid me 1,000 and the fives from the 5,000 that he had, and he was getting ready to go and do an interview with Fox News or somebody, and he said you can go down and have breakfast, and just charge it to the room. Mm-hmm. And then he said, "Will you be here when I get back?" And I was like, really? You want me to stay? Like, because we don't stay. We're not asked to stay, right? We're just, whatever.
One and done.
And so it's like, okay, yeah, I'll stay. Mm-hmm. And so he left, and I went down to have breakfast. And while I'm sitting, I'm just at the Beacon. So I'm sitting out front having breakfast, and a taxi pulls up, parks right in front, and the driver gets out of the car and walks directly to me. And he says, hey, so you know John McAfee? And I'm like, no, I don't know who you're talking about. Who's that? And he's like, yeah, okay, well, can you just tell him that his cab driver's here? And I was like, well, I don't know who John McAfee is, so I can't help you. And he's like, okay, well, just tell John McAfee that his cab driver is here. My cab's right there, and I'll be here, when he needs a taxi. And I was like, I'm sorry, I really can't help you. I don't know who you're talking about. And so now I'm on guard, and I'm a little spooked because nobody knew that I was with him, except for the night people, and who, for me, like, why would someone know who I am, right? And who is this taxi driver? And
so the dude who worked at the front door at the hotel knew who you were, though, right?
Right.
At night,
right. And so this is now the next morning.
Right. Okay.
Right. So, and it would have been long after shift change, right? So the night people would not have been there either. And so this, definitely spooked me. So when John came back, I told him about this cab driver, and he was like, I don't have a cab driver, so I don't even know who that would have been, And so he told me, though, that there was a table of people that he wanted me to go down there and just check them out and see what I thought about them, because when he was coming back to the hotel, he spotted them. I don't know what about them concerned him, but he sat down with them and he said, well, I want you to see if one of them is the cab driver, the guy that came and told you that he was my cab driver. So I was like, okay. So when I went down there, there was nobody there. And so I went back up there to the room, and he's like, okay, well, we're going to go out for lunch. So we went out to Lincoln Drive, where, all the restaurants and all the things are over there. And we were kind of just walking around, and we decided to sit and get a bite to eat. And John, while we're sitting there, John is kind of just pointing out people to me, and he's like, okay, look at that guy. He's got a weapon in his front pocket, or he's got a weapon. Look at his ankle. And he's showing me what to look for on these people. And then there was someone that had walked by, and I remember he grabbed a butter knife, because that was all that he had for a weapon, and kind of tucked it, in his sleeve on his lap, and was kind of like at ready, so I don't know now what's happening, but I do know, okay, the taxi cab driver was super weird. I do know the night while we were talking, in front of the news cafe, he was just watching people intently. So I need to be on guard here. I don't know what's going to pop off, but I need to be ready for whatever it is.
And the only threat, the perceived threat, is still Belize government.
For him, yes.
Okay.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. And
so, so we're sitting there, we have our lunch, and while we're sitting there, I'm not sure because the Lincoln Drive is like this long stretch, and then there's like streets that run parallel, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're kind of sitting in the middle, but I can see a road ahead of me, and there was this SUV that just kept circling around, and it was the same SUV because it was the same driver. And I made John aware of that, and so he decided that we were going to go back to the hotel, and he decided that we should go and change hotels. So we ended up in Fort Lauderdale at the Four Seasons or something. Anyways, that's not that important, but we just moved locations, just to distance from where we were. And spent a couple of days together. And then John said, I have to go. I'm going to go to Tennessee, but I'm going to call you, and I want you to come and meet me there. And so, I thought this was it. It's over, whatever. This is probably the last time I'm going to hear from him. But he indeed did call me. There were 2 representatives that came to John's property, government officials in some capacity that came to his property, and were offering him, land and tax breaks and women and whatever it is that his heart desired, if he was willing to give a $2 million donation to, I'm assuming, the leading political party that was currently in office. And John said, no, thank you. And, And they left. So I think he said about a week later they came back, or the GSU came back, which was the gang suppression unit, came back to his property, raided his property. They had him handcuffed for, a long time. I think 12, 14 hours or so.
This is after he declined the $2 million.
Yeah, after he declined. They destroyed his lab. They
shoot his dog.
They did shoot his dog, his deaf dog. They shot his dog.
Right in front of him.
Yeah, right in front of him. So naturally, this enraged him. They arrested him as well for, they said he had an illegal firearm, which was actually not the case, because he was able to produce the license for it until they let him go, and they dropped that charge. And then they came back a week after that and asked him if he changed his mind, and he said, "Get the F off my property." And so this for him began war. Now it's war.
So they asked him, please donate $2 million to this political party. And in exchange, they were going to give him a bunch of land,
Perks.
a bunch of girls, unlimited stuff, live like a king here. He said, no, I'm not into this. I'm not into politics, whatever.
Right.
So a week later, they sent in the SWAT team to raid his house and kill his dog.
Yeah.
And then they come back a couple days later saying, have you reconsidered?
Right.
And he still said F off.
Yes. Yeah. So now he's angry, right? And you don't want John McAfee angry.
John McAfee turned into John Wick.
Yes. Yes, very quickly. It didn't take much. And so what he decided to do was gift computers, laptops to secretaries, girlfriends, boyfriends of people who were like high up in the government, right? So and on these laptops, it had key logging information, right? Spyware on it. Yeah. And so naturally, they took the laptops, not questioning, them or anything. And so he began to...
How many laptops do you know?
I don't know. He never... I don't think I've ever really heard him say how many.
Right.
Or to whom exactly he sent them to. And so... he began collecting information. What he was looking for was just information that he had been set up for this raid on his property, because he was demanding an apology from the prime minister. And instead, what he found was drug trafficking, human trafficking, murder for hire, all sorts of evidence of illegal money laundering, all sorts of things that was being perpetrated by people high up in the government. And so now I think he obviously
so
this
they were
didn't
working
deter
with
him.
all these cartels and gangs and all this criminal stuff.
Well, naturally. I mean, this is what happens in
these kind of countries.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
This is just what happened. And so...
But he had hard evidence of it. Like
Yes.
he had emails and receipts and stuff.
Yeah, he had all the things, right?
Wow.
Because this was going on for months, a couple of months before they found out about what he was doing.
And this is obviously, so just to like really clear up the context here, we're talking about Belize before you met him, right?
Yes,
now.
before I met him. And so all of this that I'm relaying to you is things that he relayed to me,
Right.
and then also that he's spoken about in
Yep.
various interviews as well.
Yeah.
And so so I think the raid happened maybe April of 2012, and they maybe found out about August, because he was on the run for a couple of months before his neighbor was shot and killed. And so
He was on the run. So he left?
was on the run in Belize. So
Okay.
he was going and hiding out at different properties
So he
that
wasn't
he
staying
had.
at his main house anymore.
No.
Okay.
And so when his neighbor died, he wasn't actually in that home. He wasn't staying in that home.
Did he have like hard evidence, like an alibi for that?
I would imagine so. I mean, he was with Samantha, so she, would have been his alibi. She was actually with him on the run while all this is happening. Because what happened was they found out about the computers, because he hired women to kind of parse through the information, looking for things related to him. Right. And so one of these women was sleeping with I believe the head of the GSU.
He hired women to infiltrate the government?
No. To parse through the information that he was collecting.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yes. So to find out, what was related to him, if there was anything that was related to
right,
him,
I
and
see.
what was going on with him.
I
So,
understand.
And one of these women was sleeping with, I believe, the head of the GSU or the head of the police department or something.
Okay.
And so during pillow talk, she kind of just blurted out, what she was doing for John McAfee. And so that's how they found out. And that's why he had to go on the run.
Wow.
And so when his neighbor was murdered, John believed that it was actually a botched hit on him. And it was an actual attempt on trying to murder him, but they went to the wrong house.
Well, didn't the neighbor poison his dogs?
He didn't believe that. He thought it was maybe the police. I don't know the GSU, but the police. Obviously anyone could have done that. Could have thrown meat over the fence, which is probably what happened. And
because
there
was a beef between the neighbor was pissed off at John's dogs.
I heard about that, and John spoke about that, and he never knew about an official complaint that was lodged by the neighbor, but he said everybody complained about the dogs, not just the neighbor. Right. Even he complained about the dogs. They weren't actually his dogs. They were just dogs that were homeless. Yeah. That, he would bring to his property. I think he said he came to Belize with maybe 3 dogs.
Stray dogs.
But yeah, he had like 20 dogs.
Wow.
Yeah. At the time. And so, yeah, and there was actually 9 dogs that were poisoned.
Wow.
9 of the dogs.
And they were like suffering, and he had to
he had to shoot
them.
all of them. Yeah.
See, if a hypothetical situation, if that happened to my dogs, and I thought it was, and if I had evidence that the neighbor poisoned and killed 9 of my dogs, and I'm in some foreign country where I could probably get away with murder, I would consider murdering that guy.
Well, I think you would have been smarter than to wait till the next day, right? I mean, at least that's the timeline wise of how they're saying that this happened. That the very next day,
right,
John would have went and did that. It just doesn't make any sense.
You would be smarter, because it's just like it makes too much sense to say like they're gonna easily. It's so easy to point to him as being the guy who killed him because 1 + 2 = 3. The guy poisoned your dogs. You had to execute your own dogs. This guy hates your dogs, and you went out and murdered him. Like, it's an easy case to prosecute. Like, it's a
right.
So, there is that. You would think he would be smarter than that.
And he was, but again, he was not at the property. Again, this is what he
wasn't even there.
He's always said that he wasn't staying at the property because they were looking for him at the property. They were kind of waiting on the beach so that they could arrest him. Well, not arrest him. Obviously, they were just going to take him in custody and he would have disappeared. We would have never heard anything more of John McAfee. So, and this is why he refused to go back to Belize to be questioned. Now, he was never wanted for murder. I think I sent something to Steve, one of the articles from in Belize, one of the papers in Belize, there was an article saying that he wasn't wanted for murder, but he was wanted for questioning. And he offered to be questioned in any neutral area, other than Belize. He just refused to go to Belize. He wasn't going to go there. And so, because obviously he was concerned for his safety,
Police chief.
This was in the Bahamas when John was going to dox the police chief as well as a CIA agent was behind trying to have him collected in the Bahamas, arrested illegally.
What's the one we're looking for here?
It's going to be, I don't see it there.
The only articles are this one and this guy.
Yes, there's that one. This was an article as well in there. There it is. No, not that one. I'm sorry. There's another one, but that's him demanding the apology. This is from Edward McCoy, who was actually in the documentary, who talked about how he was approached and offered money to give his story that he gave in the documentary.
Well, we were trying to find an article.
Yes, I'm sorry. We're trying to find an article. I sent you a few pictures, but we can talk about these things while we're looking at it. There it is, the top one there.
Okay,
yes,
McAfee.
Not a suspect in
McAfee, not a suspect in the murder case. Belize police. Okay.
So this was CNBC. I'm sorry, I misquoted that.
November 15th, 2012.
Yeah. So he wasn't actually wanted for murder. Again,
he just wanted to question him.
Wanting to question him,
And
right? Which is why he
him.
didn't have any issues when he came back to America. No one was arresting him or trying to, take him into custody, right? Because there was no criminal charges hanging over his head.
So the Belizean government knew that he tapped into the laptops, and they knew that he had dirt on them.
Yes.
So he speculated that they wanted to get a hold of him and sort of like get all of that evidence and figure out exactly what he found out. And okay,
exactly.
I see.
And this continued throughout our relationship. This was, I believe, the source of all of his issues, because they needed to get that information. Now, they could have killed him at any point, right? If killing him was the goal, but that wasn't the goal. They needed to collect him to find out where the information was and to make sure they had all of the information and destroy it. And then
they could do what
they needed to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Because if they just tried to whack him, he could have like a dead man switch or something, and I would just release all the footage or give the footage to you and say, give it to the press if I die.
Yeah. So that I think I covered Belize, yeah. And so he's doing all of these things, and in the midst of that as well, he has built this lab, which was not a meth lab, but it was a lab, and he was working actually on topical antivirus. And the plant that was being used was local to the jungles there in Belize. And so he had created some samples that he was giving out to the locals. And this was to solve an issue that he was having. When he came back from Guatemala, he had all of these like bite marks all over his arms and all over his legs. And so that was what the topical antivirus was for, and it really was working,
He was developing all kinds of crazy drugs. I heard he had some like crazy sex drugs.
Yeah, I think Joe Rogan said the best meth was what he said, I think it was.
Yeah. I forgot he went on Joe Rogan's show.
Yeah.
Well, there was a call-in. It was one of the only call-ins Joe ever did.
Yeah. Yeah. And he was trying to get on there after that as well, but I think for whatever reason it didn't work out. But yeah, there were no drugs. I think there was articles about how there was the raid on his property and there was no drugs found. But no one wants to care about that. No, everyone wants to believe that obviously he was making, but which would be stupid for an American, a gringo, a white man to go into the jungles of Belize, right, where the cartels have the stronghold on the drug business there, right, and set up shop there. There's no way that he would not have survived a month there if that's what he was actually
if he was cooking up his own stuff in his
house. Actually, like seriously. But so.
But there was like the bath salts too, right? Like there was this crazy bath salts he was doing.
I don't know. I wouldn't call them bath salts.
He said it was like 10 in the documentary. They said it was like 10 times better than cocaine.
So I don't know about that. Okay, but I do know he was getting a supplement, I guess I would call it, from China. He definitely was doing that, and he definitely used that. And this, as he shared with me, was something that he used because he was meant to have a bypass on his heart. And so he went into finding these sort of natural remedies because he didn't want to have to do that. And so I guess somehow that led to
stimulants could help with that.
So that's what he explained to me, what it was he was getting from China. Yeah. And no bath salts, no cocaine, no
really
weed,
no cocaine.
Weed
that would be the first drug I would guess with John McAfee.
Right. I know. But he was super square. He was super square. On. Yeah. When we were living in Portland, he had an issue because I was smoking weed. So he was like, they can come in here and bust the door down and because it was illegal at the time in Portland. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to be careful, but I'm not going to stop smoking. Like that's crazy. But eventually he changed his tune once we were in Tennessee. So that became his drug, if you will, of choice, alcohol for sure. But
no cocaine.
No, I mean that would have been former use.
We got evidence right here, right? Janice.
So funny. That was actually cornstarch that we bought from the store, and that's what The label is. Yeah, that was such a fun video.
This is the video on how to uninstall
McAfee. Yes, it's so fun. That video. We had the best time that day. Yeah.
That was hilarious.
Yeah. And he just wanted to kind of really play up all of the negative press that was going on about him. And so he took all of the things that was being said about him. And in the beginning of this video, he's reading comments that were actual real comments that people had left about his software.
Oh, really?
And then when it goes to the scene with Bartholomew, who was actually, explaining how to uninstall McAfee, that was the actual directions of how to authentically uninstall it. So it was just a fun time.
With that nerdy dude, when all the ladies start massaging him, taking his clothes off.
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God, that's amazing. He's a real life GTA character.
Yeah.
That's what he is. I hope GTA, they're coming out the new Grand Theft Auto. I hope they put him in there.
Right? That would be, someone needs to make a video game.
And I think it's going to be,
John
I think
McAfee
it's in Miami
game.
again too. Yeah, it's a Miami-based one.
Nice. Because Miami's awesome. So, yeah.
I used to love Miami, but last couple times I've been there, it's just too crowded.
I will say it was weird. So I went after I was on with Matthew. I went down because I just wanted to be there and kind of walked where I had met John and where we spent time. And it's really different. It's strange, actually.
Yeah, I used to love going there, but the last couple of years, every time I've been there probably like 3 times in the last 2 years, and it's just gotten dirtier and more crowded, and the traffic's gotten even worse than it used to be.
It seems really more commercialized. I guess would be a good way to describe it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, just way more people.
Yeah.
Way more people. Different vibe. It's so crowded. The great thing about Miami is it's so close to the United States.
Yeah.
Okay. So no coke, no meth.
No coke. Sorry, guys.
Just
no coke
just some sex drugs and topical antivirus.
Just yeah. Okay. But
at least that's what he said on Rogan.
Yes, I know. I do, and I won't comment.
I don't think it would be a bad thing if he did that. I think it's fine.
I think because there's just this connotation when people ask about drug use as it relates to John, and I think that
but all the best people do drugs. All the most creative people.
It's how they are creative. Yeah, let's give
all the best musicians
drive.
did tons of drugs.
Yeah,
I don't think it's a bad. As long as you're not like hurting people, forcing them on people, you're fine.
Right.
You don't do it. Doing that stuff to yourself. If you're not, it's a victimless crime.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not. I wouldn't even consider it a crime. People have been doing drugs since the beginning of man.
Right. It's just what we do.
Yeah.
Right. To relax.
We got to alter our experience.
Yeah. and he definitely was very knowledgeable about all kinds of drugs.
Yeah.
So I will say that he wasn't ashamed to talk about his drug use.
Right.
It just didn't happen when I was with him. I will say we did do ecstasy one time, which was amazing. Yeah, we went to Dracula's castle in
the real one in Transylvania.
Yes, we went there. It was so awesome. We were listening to like lo-fi.
Acid.
It was so cool.
Oh wait, what did you say?
Ecstasy.
Ecstasy.
Yeah. It's the best day. It was really cool.
That sounds really
I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember it was cool.
Was the documentary guy with you?
No.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't there.
Damn it.
But it was a lot of fun. We had a good time. So yeah. Okay, so
back to the Belize.
Sorry, I'll get through that as quickly as possible. So anyways, they come to his lab or they come to his property. There was
doesn't have to be quick. We can take our time.
Okay, good, because I may need a pee break.
That's fine.
But so John's doing interviews with Fox News, CBS, whoever is with the mainstream media. He's doing interviews at this time, not podcasts, but interviews with the mainstream media, just on various subjects, whatever hot topics are happening. Right? I remember he did an interview about Edward Snowden when he was stuck at the airport or something in Russia. And so this is what, our life was at the time. And John did a particular interview with Fox News. And when he was doing these interviews, he would always request that they not share where he was don't share the location. You know, he'd always make sure to ask that, and everyone honored that up until this last interview that we did while we were still in Colorado.
These are all over like Skype or something?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Well, actually, we were going into the Focus of the Family building in Colorado Springs, and they had a studio set up, so we would go there and do remotely the interviews. And so this newscaster, you know, as soon as he got on, he's like, "Oh, and we're here with John McAfee in Colorado Springs." So when that happened, you know, John's pissed. You know, just not pissed, but just pissed, whatever. Not pissed enough to do anything. So
Right.
It's not a situation like that, but he's upset about it. And not long after that, things started happening in our neighborhood. And so he purchased a trailer that we kept in a trailer park, you know, I guess for this eventuality, because he was doing a lot of things that didn't make sense to me, but he wanted to have somewhere where we could have, you know, to go and hide out at. So the strange thing, the biggest strange thing I guess I could point out that happened was that when, you know, when you get on your Wi-Fi in your neighborhood, you know, it brings up all of the Wi-Fi that's in your area. And so a new Wi-Fi had popped up. It said FBI, something FBI, right? And so I don't know if that was actually the FBI or whatever, but it was just a very clear, you know, change. And then also, John decided that we would go and speak to the FBI, right? So I'm freaking out because I'm thinking like they're going to arrest me, you know, because I've done all these things. I'm thinking John's going in there to snitch on me and now I'm going to go to prison. You know, I didn't know what was going to happen, you know, so we go in there and he's telling this agent about, you know, his life and, you know, why he thinks people are after him and what's happened and all of the things. And then they asked me to leave the office. So I leave the office and I'm like, I'm sweating. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to prison. And I'm assuming it's because he's telling
Right.
this agent about me, right? He just wasn't going to do it in front of me. And so, but we leave the office, right? And they come out and everything's like, okay, Mr. McAfee, you know, if anything happens, you know, we're here, whatever, you know, but they didn't take it seriously, I don't think, or maybe they did. And maybe, you know, I was then on being watched and, you know, monitored by the FBI. I don't know. But from the outside appearance, it didn't look like they were taking it seriously. So, so we're living our life. We're kind of moving around a little bit. But I remember there was a time I was there. John was out of town, and I just happened to go to the store. And when I came out of the store, my pimp was standing at my car. And so I'm super freaked out because how does he know where I am? Because I haven't spoken to him. The only people that know where I am that could maybe relate to him or he could find out through is my family, because I was sending like MoneyGram, Western Union for my kids for school supplies, whatever they needed. Yeah. So I still to this day, I don't understand how he found me, you know, how he knew that I was at the store, right? And how he's at my car. And so I remember, because John had said not to give him any money, what I did was I took a necklace he had given me and I took it to the pawn shop, and to give him money, I said, you have to leave. You can't be here. You have to leave, like now. You know, I don't know if I made him aware of the FBI situation or not, but I just needed him to get away from me, because I didn't want John thinking that I was, you know, part of anything that was now happening, right? Because I'm still sufficiently very spooked. I don't know what's happening, you know, even though we're living like seemingly normal life, there's still this threat over us. And so eventually we move and we're traveling. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to now another relevant part of the story, because there was just a lot that was happening in our normal regular life. There was I should mention this as well. There was a talk that John had done at CSSX or something in San Jose, and it was in the same year, 2013. He gave a keynote speech during there, and a woman from Belize had come And, you know, because afterwards he's kind of meeting and greeting, shaking hands and things. And this woman comes and she says she's from Belize. And she hands him an envelope, a manila envelope. And there were some pictures in there of his properties or something. And so there was just these strange things that were always happening. People trying to give him drinks or, you know, women trying to get him to come to his hotel, their hotel room, you know, giving key cards and all the things. So there was always a sense of danger, potential danger around us. And so I want to get to, we were in Denver. I'm not sure why we were in Denver, but I think because I was eventually about to fly out to California to see my kids, but I don't know why we were staying at the hotel. I think just because of everything that was happening since our location was outed. I think John just felt safer, you know, getting some distance. And so we were there. There's like a kind of concentrated area of hotels. So we were at one of the hotels, and I remember there was like this road that went behind the hotels, and there was this pickup truck because I was walking our dog Tequila, and this pickup truck was like stopping, going to this hotel, and then he would stop and sit for a little bit, and then he would move and stop and sit a little bit and move and stop. And so I told John about it, and he said he's trying to triangulate, you know, could be possibly looking for us, was the assumption, obviously. And at this point, we weren't sure what was going on or how people were locating us, but it turned out to be the pickup truck. There was the low jack on the truck that we didn't realize. You know, if someone steals your truck,
a tracker,
or yeah, if it's ever stolen, you know, it could be found. So, you know, I tell John about that, and then, you know, I catch my flight to go to California, and he, you know, he called me like later that evening, and he's like, listen, I'm hiding out in the parking garage because, you know, something's going on, but I'll let you know, when I'm okay. And so eventually he made his way to California to me, and he was like, listen, we got to go because I've got people following me, and, you know, it's not safe for you to be here with your kids. So we left, and we made our way to Arizona, where the girlfriend of our security that was living with us in Portland, she came and met with us, as well as John Poole, who was John's head of security for over 20 years. And so they met up with us. They had a rental car. And so we got in the rental car, John, myself, and the girlfriend. And his head of security took the pickup truck. And he, you know, figured out, obviously, it was the low jack. So he disabled it, whatever he needed to do that. And we went on about our way. But we were still being followed, you know, in that area, in that general area of where, you know, we thought we had lost people. And so, you know, John and the girlfriend, they're chill. They're like, you know, everything's fine. Nobody's following us anymore. And I'm like, no, you guys are wrong. Like, we're still being followed. You know, and we've not lost, because we're kind of like still in the same area, in the general area of where people were like kind of following us on the highway. And when I say following, I mean like, you know, cars would get behind us, and, you know, John would slow down, you know, and slow down to like a ridiculously slow speed on the highway, like 30 miles an hour. And this car is still slowed down.
So they weren't being discreet. They were being obvious.
Yeah, they were being very obvious, but they were just spotters. There was no danger, immediate danger, right? They were just the spotters. Only. Do you
think that they were trying to intimidate John? Like, because they obviously it was clear, right? They weren't doing a very good job of being discreet. So do you think maybe they were just trying to intimidate him and scare him, let him know like you're being watched?
Yeah, possibly. And also maybe to just keep an eye until the danger could get there. Yeah. Right. Until the muscle or the heavies could get there and do what they needed to do. Right.
Right.
And so, you know, like I said, I told John, you know, people were still being followed. At the time, the girlfriend was driving. I said, okay, listen, I'll calm down if you get in the driver's seat, John. I need you to drive, because I knew he, you know, could handle himself behind the wheel. I said, I need you to drive and I'll be cool, you know. And so we're driving, and we're getting ready to, we were actually almost out of gas because the gas light was on. I told John, I said, we should probably get some gas. I said, because we're not, you know, we're still being followed, so let's stop and get gas. He's like, no, we'll be fine. I was like, okay. I said, if this white pickup truck that you see right here at the stoplight, if it turns when we turn, then we're still being followed, okay? And so sure enough, that pickup truck turned with us. And so John still, he wants to make sure. So he does this thing. He slows way down. They slow way down. He speeds up. They speed up. So they're matching speed with us. Eventually, we get up to like over 100 miles an hour. We're in a Ford Focus, the little hatchback thing. And we're like sort of hydroplaning on the road because it was really crazy how fast we were going. Eventually, they slowed down. But we kept going at the same speed until we got into a town because it was like a 2-lane highway and you're now in between towns, right? And so eventually we slowed down. Once we got into town, we looked for a gas station, found one, and then we proceeded to leave town. But John was like, he was going slow and I was like, hurry up, we need to get out of here. He's like, no, I got this now, and he's very slowly drove out of town just to not draw attention, and so we were able to get out of that situation, and we made it to Texas, and that's where his head of security met us again. John ended up shaving his beard off, and he looked so drastically different without his beard.
I've never seen him without the goatee.
Yeah. He was so insecure about it. I was like, it's fine. You got to do what you got to do.
Did he have a weak chin? Is that why he kept it?
No, he didn't have a weak chin. Not at all. But I think it was just so much a part of his identity, that it just felt weird without it. And he shaved that because, I'm me. Right, there's nothing I could do to look not like me, right? So you spot me, you're spotting him, right? Was the assumption. And so when we left the hotel room, we left separately. I came down first, so all of the people, you could see them, they're kind of watching me. They're looking now for John. Where's John? And so I went and get in the pickup truck, and John goes up to these people, assuming these are the people looking for us. And he's like talking to them in this country accent, what do you guys think about this Texas weather? It's really weird. And so, but they didn't pick up on it, and he came and got in the pickup truck and we left. Wow. And so we were able to get, out of that situation, and we ended up going to Tennessee where his head of security was living. Something that people didn't understand about John was that John was he was playing a role. Yeah. And he was very good at it. He was extremely good at it. But I mean, I'm sure people will swear to you that he was a drunk and a drug addict, and he did drink. Yeah, he did drink. He has his mixology videos that he would put, and he'd mix these crazy drinks that would be all alcohol and, usually very little of anything else. But no one saw behind the scenes that he never really drank those drinks. Like if you didn't see him in the video drink all of it, then it just sat. And he didn't drink it. And no one in the house noticed that.
Yeah.
Right? And then also you have to factor in there would be days sometimes where John would not sleep, and when nighttime would hit, all the lights would have to be off in the house, and he'd be in the windows watching, listening. This happened one time in particular in North Carolina. When we officially moved there, we moved into a house called the Love Boat on Hatteras Island. It looked like a boat. It was really cool. It's a cool house. And so it was after I had returned from one of my trips to California. I get back, and the security, they're like, Miss Janice, oh my gosh, like John has been at this for like 2 days now, and he's like, we've not been able to sleep. He's been up all night. Like, we don't know what's going on. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, like what's going on. So I talked to John, and I'm like, okay, listen guys, just let him do what he needs to do, right? If you let him do it and you don't interfere and you don't impede him, then he'll, whatever it is that he needs to work through, he'll work through it, and he'll figure out that nothing's happening. But what it was the dogs. We had, by this time we still had Tequila, but we also had a Commodore named Marley, white dog. And then we had 2 German Shepherds, a brother and sister named Axel and Duchess. So they were being triggered by something, right? So every night, like clockwork, why he was bothered was that they were barking at something over our back deck. And so, the day after, I get there, I get back, John, he fires his gun into the driveway down on the ground, right? And so then early that morning, like maybe 5 or 6 in the morning, these guys come walking down the driveway now, and they're like, listen, please don't shoot. We're just here to get the vehicles. They were there to repossess vehicles because they were in one of the security's name, and he got salty and he wanted to repossess the vehicle. So he sent these people, and that's what they were trying to do. And so they were there. They were the ones that were triggering the dogs to bark.
Oh, okay.
And so, I explained to them, I was like, listen, usually there's 9 times out of 10, there's nothing happening. Nothing's going on. But if you just let him work through whatever he needs to work through, he'll settle down on his own, But he lived through some things. So if something's triggering him, then he just needs to work through that trigger, whatever, until he can say in himself, not someone telling him, everything's cool. He'll figure it out on his own and he'll settle down. But I was like, see, this is the point, right? It was not something dangerous, but there was someone out there, right? So you just got to let him do what he's going to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So super, super crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also so crazy that
intense.
He was so driven to document all this stuff and constantly working on projects to make movies and documentaries and graphic novels and get his life out there, like on film or on paper some way or another, one way or another.
I don't know if you've read the John McAfee tapes. It's by Mark Eglinton. He wrote a book. So what happened while we were in Spain, John reached out to was just trying to find someone to write his biography. It's supposed to be a biography. And so he reached out to Mark, and they worked over the summer of 2020. They would speak regularly for hours at a time, and John would just share a lot of the
This is the ghostwriter from the documentary?
No, I don't think so. That was a different ghostwriter who actually just didn't he just didn't fit. He wasn't the right fit, which I'm surprised why he had all of those other things to say. It was just, I guess, just trying to sell whatever book he had written. But anyways, no, this was someone else who John liked very much, and he shared a lot of his life, intimately with him as well, because he wanted a book written. And so, what happened was when John died, obviously it couldn't be autobiography anymore, but what he did was he took the tapes that he recorded of their conversations, and he made a book out of that. So it's kind of cool to read it, to read sort of from John's perspective what was going on, because there's a lot of interesting tidbits in the book that didn't make it in the documentary. And if you want to know from John McAfee's mouth, from his words, from his perspective, what his life was like and why he felt like he was in danger and why people were after him, all of the things, you should read that book, the John McAfee tapes. It's really, really good.
Is it on audio?
I think so. I'm not sure, actually, but it's a really good book, though.
Crazy. Such a crazy story.
I know, right? And it's just so wild to have lived through that. And I'm not really touching like the surface of all the things, but just trying to give, interesting things that did happen over the time.
And we have a mutual friend.
Do we?
We do. Okay. He was on this podcast a couple of years ago, and he is a guy who was in prison in Spain, and they were trying to extradite him here.
Okay.
He owned a bunch of real estate here, and he was like smuggling tons of marijuana.
Yes, so we have a mutual friend, David Mendoza.
David Mendoza. Yeah, he's great. So I guess he was trying to. I don't know if he was working with you and John was still alive.
Yeah,
or what?
Was. Oh, he was. He actually reached out to John. He wrote him a letter. And John asked me to reach out to him. So that's how we got in contact, because he was saying to him that he could help, with his case and everything. So that's what we did. And I think he's actually
an expert in extradition.
Yeah, he actually put me in contact with the second Spanish attorney that we had, because the first one was hired, by John's friends, but he didn't really have an expertise in extradition. And so Mr. Mendoza put me in contact with, it was a woman at first, but she wanted too much money, and so we went with Emilio, who took on the case and was trying to assist the other attorney with just the right arguments, having the right arguments before the judges to put before them. And so David was a good guy. He was a good dude. We had a lot of good conversations, and I wish that I wish it could have worked out, that John was able to benefit from his knowledge.
So what are you doing nowadays?
Nowadays, I'm a grandma, first of all. I have
wow,
to say
congratulations.
that. Yeah, she's going to be 1 on Thursday.
No
her name is
way.
Kaori. And
That's amazing.
My oldest daughter, this daughter. And so I'm a grandma, so that's awesome. But other than that, I'm working with a project called Antivirus, which is a play on the antivirus. And basically what we're doing is providing privacy products for people as they're transacting with their cryptocurrencies, right?
Okay.
And so, which is something that was near and dear to John's heart as well. Just having privacy-focused products for people to keep themselves safe as they're basically transacting with their crypto, And so the products that we have already rolled out are, straight from Sean's brain. They're John's brainchild. His ideas that he was working on that he didn't really wasn't able to see to come to full fruition while he was still living. So this project is to kind of take up the banner of his legacy, if you will.